Good Monday morning, everyone. Sure hope your week's off to a great start. I want to jump right into our message from yesterday. We're continuing this series called The Gospel at Work. And I guess if I could gel it down into just a few statements or two, it'd be simply this. That whether you're a CEO of an organization or whether you're a grandparent who is on the playground serving your grandchild from day to day, whether you're a person who works in the factory or a warehouse somewhere, or whether you're a person writing a book or even volunteering at the hospital, what you do is not as important as who it is you serve. And once we as Christians embrace that mentality, what it basically means is this, that no matter what I do it to the glory of God. And in doing so, I'm finding the heart and the mind to work for God and not for other people. Not to be people pleasers, but to just serve God with humility and do that to the very best of my ability. So we talked about dealing specifically with difficult people yesterday. And we talked about it from two different perspectives. The first perspective is, of course, from that of a person who has authority. Maybe it's a person who's a leader in their organization, or is that CEO, or is a project manager, or maybe it's someone who is just running their household. With that authority comes a certain sense of humility and stewardship. And once we recognize that all authority has been given down by God, so wherever you find yourself in these positions, recognize that God is the one who gave it to you. But with that comes a few expectations. And how do we deal with people who are underneath us? And sometimes the most difficult people, let's just say it, are in our own households. That's right. But how do we deal with them? How can we love them? How can we serve them? And so the first thing is this: recognize the authority comes from God. That's the first thing. The second thing is this: recognize that my position is meant to be a blessing and to serve other people. You know, even as the head of my house, my job is to serve my family, to do what I can to be a blessing to them and to teach them and to lead them closer to God. But also I have to recognize that with that authority, there can be some abuses, and I need to be checking myself about those things. I need to be watching over my attitude, that I'm not condescending to people or looking down to them, that I am demonstrating grace and mercy and passion, and yes, even accountability, but doing so in a way that motivates and helps people in their lives. And the second thing, or the next thing that I need to remember, is that my authority needs to model that of Jesus. I need to love people the way he loved them. I need to show mercy, but I need to inspire and encourage and challenge them as well. And so when we think about all those things from an authority perspective, that's one way that we can help manage the difficult things that come. You know, when we have that authority over someone else, we can be a blessing to them. But what if you're the worker who is challenged by someone that's working alongside you that maybe doesn't pull their weight, or maybe they have an attitude problem, or maybe they're just challenging to you all the time, or maybe they're undercutting your work, or whatever. There's lots of things that we could think about with regard to that, but I want to ask all of us to think about how important it is for us to adopt a Christian perspective over a worldly perspective. For example, the worldly perspective says things like, it doesn't matter how I treat people so long as I get the job done. Well, the Christian perspective says something totally different. It says, I recognize that God's put me in this position and that he's watching over my influence here. And so I need to make sure that what I'm doing is God honoring. And that changes the way that work environment goes, doesn't it? So I think the important thing for us to do is exactly what Jesus said. Pray for those who are difficult. You know, he says pray for your enemies, but sometimes the people who are most difficult, we almost feel a combative relationship with them. Well, one of the ways we can disarm that bad feeling in our hearts is to pray for that person. Pray for their salvation. Pray for their family. Pray for their relationships. Pray for their circumstances and the challenges that they may be going through that may be affecting their attitude on the job. But also, think about what you can do to serve that person. Maybe adopt a servant's heart. Maybe there's something that you can do to lighten their load and to share in their work so you can be a help to them. Give them all the credit, but be someone who sacrifices your time for their good. Maybe it's the idea that or the things that we need to do, and maybe the most important thing is simply this, that we do not return evil for evil. But rather than returning in kind, we return to kindness and do what we can to disarm. The Bible says in Romans chapter 12, live peaceably among all men. And the way you overcome evil is not by returning more evil, but by returning good. And so those things will help us. And then the final thing is this: work with all you got for and to the glory of God. And when you do that, I think you're going to see that everything changes. Your perspective about your work, your attitude, and then the difficult people around you may just very well begin to dissipate. And you may find yourself working harder and closer with people than you ever have before. I hope that's the case. I pray that it's the case for you. And I pray that this message is going to help you this week. We love you guys. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday and on Wednesday. Take care.